Impeccable, the podcast with two guys in their 20s giving the perspective on the games that we love, headlines of pop culture, and the meaning behind it all. I'm host Ones of Burns, my counterpart Savon Morris was not able to be here tonight, but I'm joined first by special guest Alex Hampton. Thanks so much for being on, man.
Thank you for having me, man. Can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Serge Privert as well. Thank you so much for being back on, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man, definitely. And for this episode, we're doing an exclusive review of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Spoilers are coming, so if you haven't seen it, make sure to check it out before you listen to this review. To start with the overview, this is the sequel to Black Panther and the 30th film in the MCU. Directed by Ryan Coogler, who co-wrote the screenplay with Joe Robert Cole. The film stars Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Winston and Angela Bassett. In this movie, the leaders of Wakanda fight to protect their nation in the wake of King T'Challa's death. Had a budget of $250 million and brought in $546.3 million into the box office and had an 84% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. To start it off, Alex, what were your initial thoughts on the sequel and it trying to move the franchise forward in kind of an emotional fashion?
Once again, thank you for having me on the show. The word that keeps popping in my mind is emotional. Emotional. Yeah. I wanted to go in to see how they were going to acknowledge how T'Challa is no longer on this earth, what happened, how it happened. And I wanted to see what the people of Wakanda were going to look like without their fierce leader. And as we got to see the movie progress, Angela Bassett kills it. She lets the United Nations know who we are. Ain't nobody touching us.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I saw a lot of growth, definitely a lot of human moments. And I saw that, even though, I was just thinking about this on the way home today, they stole vibranium to make Captain America's shield. Now they want to destabilize the whole country just so they can take their resources to make weapons. And I was like, wow, they're doing an amazing job making this look real. So from overall, I would say it was an emotional, impactful movie that I really enjoyed.
Absolutely. To you, Serge, what were your initial thoughts on this movie? Obviously, there was so much anticipation, so much emotion placed throughout. What did you kind of think about it and some of your initial takeaways?
I think in my initial thinking, specifically when I saw the trailer, I had high anticipation for this film because there was so much play. This film was a ode to the deceased Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in peace. When the trailer came out, it seemed like it was just such a masterpiece. Being visually pleasing to the eye and having such a stacked cast, of course. And it seemed as if they really wanted to tell a narrative of this king who died, but specifically the women that mourned the death of not only their king, but also the death of their brother, the death of their son, and the death of their loved one. And so specifically, let's say for instance, they use the song "No Woman No Cry," which is a Bob Marley song, and the meaning behind that song is that women don't cry. Even though this situation may be sad, don't let it be a burden to you. And here are the women of Wakanda who are mourning the death of their king and the death of their brother. And it's kind of interesting trying to see how they're comforted during this time.
Yeah, definitely. And also before we get to our first topic and initial thought on what our rating is, to you, Alex, in terms of everything that they had to prepare for, following the death of Chadwick Boseman, do you feel did this movie kind of meet the expectations for how they would address that in the beginning, or did you think it was one of those things where they still were trying to navigate what's the proper way to address his passing, but also address T'Challa's death in the beginning of the movie?
Yes and no, because last time we saw T'Challa, he had the last little bit of the heart-shaped herb, so which was kind of contradicting if Letitia Wright, if Sherry was making a artificial heart-shaped herb to cure her brother, but he already had it in his body, I don't believe it would have worked anyway. Because whatever the disease that he had, which we all know was cancer to an extent, who's to say that I don't believe that was the greatest explanation why. I get what they were trying to do,
Mhm.
but like they made it a little bit too real. They basically said King T'Challa died the same way Chadwick Boseman died,
Yeah.
and there was nothing that we can do to fix it. But in order for her to fix it, she was going to make an artificial heart-shaped herb, an herb that he already had in his body. So my thing is that what was this artificial herb going to do that the one that in his body didn't do? But ultimately, I got the gist. That's just a little nitpick,
Right.
but I got the gist of what they were trying to go, because when you see Shuri mourn and she's like, how do I go about life? She wants to see the world burn. She wants to stay stuck in her lab. I love the progression of Letitia Wright's acting, because we saw her
Yes.
angry, we saw her emotional, we saw her happy and jovial, and then we saw her as the warrior that we know. So I think the way they transitioned it was really good. And also I love what they did, uh what T'Challa did opening Wakanda to the world caused a whole lot more issues for Wakanda to deal with, and the fact that he's not here to help them, that makes the perception seem like they look weak,
Mhm.
but they weren't weak at all. So I
Yeah.
I love how they made the transition. I just think from a writing standpoint, it was kind of bad writing. I think they could have said T'Challa could have died in war instead of a disease a
Mhm.
disease that was going to be cured for something that was already in his body, quote unquote. I don't know, so that's how I kind of see that.
Definitely. And now getting to our first topic from 1 to 4 stars, what would you give it? To you, Serge, like, what would be your particular rating for this film, and kind of like some of your reasons for it?
It's a great question. So I'm gonna be honest with you. If I was to rate this film, I'd probably rate it kind of tough. Probably 3 star, maybe 2.8, 2.9. Even though there were certain aspects of the film that I really did enjoy, and I would say one of those aspects was Angela Bassett as the Queen. I truly believe that she carried the film. Um, it's okay if I spoil what happens. Okay, excellent. If y'all don't want to hear spoilers, please leave. All right. So Angela Bassett, who's playing the Queen of Wakanda, she really does carry the film. But there's a point where she dies trying to save Ironheart or Riri Williams. And I'll be honest with you, I feel like after the death of the Queen, things kind of fell off for me. Um, it seemed like the storyline lacked cohesiveness, um, and it seemed like just that powerful, strong figure that the Queen, Angela Bassett's character played. It's like once she died, it was kind of like there was something that lacked there for the rest of the film, if that makes sense. And so I can't give it like a full 4 star. I'll probably give it like a 3 star. If I can give like a point system like 2.8, 2.9, that's where I'll place it. And
Yeah,
so
definitely. I would give it three as well. I mean, I definitely think this was definitely worthy as a bridge from the bleakness of loss to, a stable place from which the next generation can move forward. I do think after the Queen's death, like you said, it lagged a bit. Like, to you, Alex, what would be your particular rating from 1 to 4 stars? And also, what are your thoughts on kind of like the point Serge brought up? Because it did feel like there was a bit of a let off after the Queen's death.
I would probably agree with Serge and say I would give it about 3 stars, because like it's clear that Shuri's not ready to be queen or to lead Wakanda. And yes, her, like, watching her mom died give her the I guess the drive to become Black Panther. What I did not like, I'm not gonna lie, like I like the Riri character, but I feel like the movie would have been better without her. I personally, only because like you mean to say that Riri built something to detect vibranium within our world, and the government's trying to hunt her? Really? That's why we get the Wakanda. But my thing, because the reason why I say that's because Claw had vibranium. Captain America's shield is made out of vibranium, and there was no call for the Wakandans
Mhm.
to get involved at that point. So we're gonna allow this college student who built something to detect vibranium in our international waters. That is what is essentially the premise of why the people of Taliban get involved, and then United Nations, and like I get what they were trying to do, but again, from a writing standpoint, the element of vibranium has already been introduced.
Right.
The fact that that was the totem pole for this particular movie, I don't know. I don't know if that was the way to go. I get that they had to go about mourning T'Challa, moving on with T'Challa, and a new Black Panther Rising, without T'Challa. I get all of the points that they were trying to make. However, for me, it was kind of like, all right, um, there wasn't enough. I feel as though substance. I mean, even when Shuri becomes Black Panther, I don't really believe that she really wanted to be Black Panther. And like
Mm.
I will say this, her going to the ancestor plane, seeing Killmonger, which I thought was pretty cool. But that scene I still feel like it was out of place too. Because at the end, she saw her mom. And her
Right.
mom tells her, show them who you are. So like what was the whole my thing is my thing about this movie, I keep asking myself in certain scenes, what was the point? What are we doing here?
Mm.
And I'd hate to compare it to the first movie because I love the first movie. Um, in the first movie, we knew what T'Challa was trying to do.
Yeah.
In this movie, it just seemed like a lot of the people seemed like the people of Wakanda still grieving at the loss of their king, still trying to navigate life while dealing with an underwater kingdom trying to kill their people. And I think if they would have focused more on that instead of the geopolitical aspects of it, it would have been a little bit more of a better film. And I would have given it 4 stars. I still like the movie. I love the action, the cinematography. I love the scenery of Taliban and the scenery of Wakanda as well. I even like Shuri's ascension to Black Panther. But there's just a lot of story plot points that happen. I was like, I don't know if this would make any sense, but I would give it a 3 star out of 4.
Yeah. Same. And now getting into favorite character, I would go with Nakia as, even though she felt disconnected from her homeland, she still shows that she's always gonna be a soldier, a Wakandan, and a loving mother. To you, Serge, in this movie, like who is kind of like your overall favorite character?
I think I have to say Baku. Um, and I hope this is. I'm not a chauvinist. I love the women of Wakanda. They're great, great characters. But M'Baku is just such a humorous character, um, where whenever he's on screen, you just can't help but like smile and laugh because he's just that much of a likable person. But also, it's like specifically like he's just such a large dude, but he's like a teddy bear on the inside. And one thing I love about how they utilized him within Black Panther 2 is he becomes like this figure of wisdom, where he's advising Shuri because Shuri is now the new Black Panther. She's having to deal with the death of her brother, and she doesn't want to take up the mantle. But at the same time, like she knows that since her mother died, of course Chadwick died, or T'Challa died, that she needs to learn how to navigate becoming the new leader of Wakanda. And so M'Baku becomes this counselor figure for Shuri, giving her advice and comforting her when she lost pretty much all her family. So I'm gonna have to say M'Baku, most definitely. So,
Yeah. To you, Alex, like who is your kind of like overall favorite character in this movie?
Namor.
Mm.
Namor
I was
was
about to ask you what were your thoughts on Namor.
Namor. Essentially, like if you take Namor and Eric Killmonger, you have to ask yourself, what's the difference?
Mm. Interesting.
Because they are both essentially fighting for the same thing. The only difference is Killmonger wanted genocide versus Ta- Namor wanted to protect his people, and the only way he felt like protecting his people was essentially genocide as well. But the only difference is he wanted to protect the people of underwater. He didn't care about the people of Wakanda or people in America.
Right.
Killmonger wanted to protect all black people, and that's all black people who are even Trump supporters. Just think about that. That's and I'm not saying that you shouldn't take care of those people too. I'm just saying like black people who self hate themselves.
Yeah.
That's who he wanted to protect. So, but the reason why I love Namor is like, listen, I'm only here to protect my people and make sure that we're good. And I think that Namor or Namor, as they pronounced it in the movie, he loved his family. He loved his people. I loved his leadership, and also he was just an overall lethal dude. Like
Yeah,
Namor was the
was.
perfect villain for this movie, but that's what kept me engaged. And Namor didn't care. Like he killed Queen Ramonda, and he said, "I'm going to come back and kill everybody else."
That man was a G. That man was a
R-
G, bro.
Right. And it's kind of like with Killmonger. Killmonger killed Zuri and took over Wakanda. And if you didn't follow him, he's going to kill everybody else.
Yeah,
So that's what I loved about it. Like both of these people were relentless in what they believed in. That's what makes a good villain because they don't believe they're doing anything wrong. So he would have to be my favorite character. If I had to choose anyone from Wakanda, it would have to be Queen Ramonda, Angela Bassett's character, because every time she was on screen, I was just sucked in. So
yeah, definitely. And now getting into most memorable scenes, I had King T'Challa's funeral and Shuri grieving her brother. Also Killmonger's cameo and Shuri becoming Black Panther. Namor giving Shuri Talakan Grand Tour, Shuri Okoye and Riri Williams trio teaming up. Also Namor attacking the Capitol, the lab fight, Queen Ramonda's death, and then finally Black Panther versus Namor. To you, Serge, like, were there any scenes in this film that you kind of thought were the standouts and the ones that kind of had your attention the most?
I would have to say, specifically when Ramonda, she has the council around her and she's grieving. She's saying like, "I'm the queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and I've lost my entire family." And again, like Angela Bassett does such a great job with this character, where like she's acting her butt off with this. Like you really feel the tension within her heart, where she not only lost her husband during Civil War, right, but she lost her son, and she at this time she realized that Shuri was kidnapped by Namor and Atuma, and so like she's a queen of this powerful nation, but she feels like she has nothing because she lost her entire family. She's really grieving. And what's also makes this scene amazing is Okoye is standing before her because it was Okoye's responsibility to make sure that Shuri is safe. And Okoye promised that she would keep Shuri safe, and she failed. And so not only are there clashing tension between Okoye and the Queen, but the queen mourning the loss of her child, and Okoye realizing that she's gonna lose her job, her position as general. Like she devoted her entire life to becoming a Dora Milaje. And so it's a very, very conflicting scene, a lot of tension, a lot of emotion there, but it's so well acted and it's so well put together. It had to be my favorite scene.
Definitely. To you, Alex, were there any particular scenes in this film that you kind of thought were the most intriguing ones?
uh, there was a couple. One scene in particular I keep thinking about is when Okoye is facing off against the people of Talakan.
Mhm.
She's she's giving killing blows and they don't go down.
Yeah,
And that was the first time we've ever seen Okoye struggle. And I'm like, oh God, like how is
yeah,
this going to
that
end?
stood out.
I thought she was going to die. I was like, oh snap. Could you imagine if they walked away from that killing her?
Yeah.
Oh God. I think that from a plot point that would have been interesting. Another scene, to reiterate what Serge said, where Queen Ramonda's like, I am the queen of the most powerful nation on the earth. I mean, I felt the pain in that woman's voice. She lost everything,
Yeah,
everything. And then you still have Americans still trying to take what's left. Like, really? And you had one job, protect my daughter. Really? So I understood her frustration. I don't think that she should have demoted Okoye, but I understand the frustration where she was coming from. And then another favorite scene of mine from just an art standpoint is when Namor's giving Shuri a tour of his people of Telecon. The water and the different people and the scenery. From an art standpoint, I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah,
Um I noticed though Wakandans and Talikans, they love their jewelry. If you notice, like all of them are
hmm
wearing some form of jewelry piece. Even with Wakandans, if they're not wearing a daishiki, they're wearing the kimoyo beads, or they're wearing like some form of jewelry or something to make sure that they're representing their people, which I thought was pretty cool as
yeah, absolutely. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, and now we're getting to the second half of our topics. And to start with, the most memorable quotes I had: "Does it comfort you or torment?" for Queen Ramonda. Also, I have "More soldiers in this country as blades of grass" from Namor. Also, "One of the most broken people can be great leaders" from Namor. Also, "The world has taken too much to consider you a child" from M'Baku. And then finally, "Vengeance," which this one would probably be my favorite quote, is which "And vengeance has consumed us, but we cannot let it consume our people" from Shuri. To you, Serge, like, what were some of your memorable quotes in this movie?
I'll probably say first and foremost what the Queen said when she realized that she was gone, and she stated how, like I said before, she was the queen of the most powerful nation in the world, but she lost her entire family. And it's kind of like, despite the fact that you are royalty of this powerful nation, what good is it when your loved ones are gone? You know what I mean? And she really showed just the kind of grief that she had within her heart, losing all her family members at the time. And so that was quite memorable because not only did the actress did a good job portraying that grief and that anger, but also at the same time realizing that, like, not only did we, not only did she lose, let's say, her son, T'Challa, but also as, you know, fans of Chadwick Boseman, we lost him as well. So I really sympathized with the Queen at that moment. Um, and I'd also point back to what M'Baku said to Shuri. It's quite fascinating the amount of times the second movie pointed back to the first movie, where M'Baku was challenging T'Challa to be the king of Wakanda, and then he kind of corrects or rebukes Shuri by saying she's a young female who defied the very traditions of their tribes, right, of their people. But now in this movie, he's commending her because she has matured beyond that, and she's no longer that girl that he rebuked in the first movie. So that was also a great statement there as well.
Yeah. To you, Alex, like, what were some of the quotes in here that you kind of thought were the most memorable ones, and maybe some of the ones that you thought like were the top tier moments of the movie?
Um, essentially almost everything Queen Ramonda said, but I think
Yeah, you swept it away.
with Namor, when he was talking to Shuri, he said, you know, is Wakanda gonna be our ally, or they're going to be essentially our adversary when we rise to protect our country? I thought that was like, he's like, listen, like, either you're with us or you're not, and I have enough people to destroy you and your family, your loved ones, kids, and all these other people. You're either going to join us or, you know, you suffer the consequences. Another quote I loved is where you know, it's not really a quote, but that conversation between Nakia and Shuri, where she asks her, Shuri, who did you see?
Yeah.
And, you know, and she's like, you know, she didn't want to tell her. She's just struggling with it. She was like, you know, don't let vengeance consume you. She like, it already has. You know, it's like she was angry in the beginning of the movie. Now she's angry now. But like, when have we seen, and maybe they'll dive more into this as we see the growth of Wakanda, but when have we seen the Black Panther act in vengeance? We haven't. I don't believe. Other the closest thing is when Bucky killed T'Challa's dad, you know, and
Mhm.
then like T'Challa was hunting Bucky like white on rice.
Yeah.
Like he was going to kill Bucky, and that was like the only little bit of vengeance we've seen from the people of Wakanda. So like for me, just to seeing the growth between Lupita's character and Shuri's character, and also like I said, Namor. I think Namor is definitely the standout of this whole film. Just those conversations that they've had is what kept me engaged, and also when we first see Namor appear into to Wakanda, you know, the Queen's like, "I am not a woman who asks the same question twice. Who
Mm,
are you?" And I was like, and she was getting ready to kill him on spot, and then she was like, "Mother, he's covered in vibranium. There's no way you can at least kill him directly like we think." So, but yeah, I would say those scenes and those quotes in particular were the standouts.
yeah, for sure. And before we get to our next topic, like, looking at Angela Bassett's performance and just like how outstanding it was. Like to you, Serge, like when you looked at the performance she had and kind of the weight of it and just like how much gravity was placed into it, what were your like initial thoughts on it and just kind of like um how important it was for her to kind of be the emotional support throughout the movie until her death?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, specifically, let's say, for instance, right? I mentioned before how in Civil War, I think it was King T'Chaka, the father of T'Challa, died. It's not only did the queen lose her husband, but then now losing, of course, her son, and she being the patriarch of the society there, she still has responsibility to help the people within society by the same time dealing with her own grief. And so Angela Bassett, being such a fantastic actor, did a great job portraying that. Let's say, for instance, specifically when the Queen had to go to the United Nations meeting, and then she had to address the reason why Wakanda wasn't trading exports or trading vibranium with the other nations like France or the United States. And she still has to keep her composure, and she still has to keep her professionality. And you really see it through just her body language, how like despite the fact that she's a grieving mother and a grieving queen, she still holds herself together with pride and with royalty and with valor. And it's fascinating how Angela Bassett playing this character, she maintains that pride and that royalty in regards to just her presence. Just shows it, right? Despite the fact that she's grieving, she still holds that with her. She still has her chest held up high and her strong arms and strong shoulders. She realizes that even though she's grieving, she has to she has to fulfill her duties as a queen, especially as a mother to Shuri as well. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. To you, Alex, like what were your thoughts on Angela Bassett's performance? And like Serge was mentioning, like there was a lot. She had a lot of responsibility that was placed on her throughout the movie.
Os- it was Oscar winning, definitely Oscar winning.
Yeah,
Um, we saw a grieving black woman running a kingdom, and it was like just from everything from. I think one of my favorite scenes is her trying to protect Riri, like Riri's her own child. Like I thought she would have been like, Riri, you on your own. But she was like, no, stand behind me.
yeah,
I'm not gonna let him kill you. And then she went and saved him, saving her, costing her own life. So for me, Angela Bassett's performance is award winning. I think the reason why we got such a great performance from her because she knew that this was her last movie. I don't think she wants to be a part of the MCU. That's why I guess she agreed with with the standpoint of her character dying. And then also it's kind of hard to continue a franchise without your your lead actor who's now gone. So I think ultimately when the decision was made to kill her off, she was happy with it because she did not she felt like her story had been told and she gave it her all. But I think the best scene, one of the best scenes with her is when she's at the United Nations and she's addressing them while her people are taking down the American operatives.
yes,
She's basically saying, listen, we hear the conversations that y'all have about Wakanda, saying that our protector is gone, Black Panther is gone. And you think you can storm our place and take what's valuable to us? You are sadly mistaken. She could have easily killed those people,
mm,
but she brought them to the United Nations and made them look like fools. And they were like, you know, and that's why it kind of pissed me off. Um, it it would kind of piss me off that they said that they wanted to destabilize Wakanda. I'm like, really? You think you can do that? Like, I would love to see you try, but
yeah.
but yeah.
Definitely. And now getting to our next topic, what did you like the most about the storyline? To me, like this felt like a film where Marvel, took a back seat and it, it really let Ryan Coogler honor Chadwick Boseman the way he wanted to, and it just doubled down on smaller dialogue scenes and character expansions and let us learn more about Wakanda. To you, sir, like what in particular about this storyline did you kind of like the most?
so yeah, um, what I'll say would be, of course, like I really did enjoy the action scenes. I enjoyed the fight scenes between Namor and his assailants in Wakanda. But what I appreciate the most about this movie, and again, spoilers, so if y'all don't want to hear, leave. Was spoiler alert, but truly, I would say is the ending. I couldn't really think of a better ending. So, Shuri is grieving. She's finally expressing her emotions about the death of her brother, where she was kind of holding it in and like pretend like as if she wasn't really affected. She's finally like crying and and just expressing emotions about the death of T'Challa. But what was beautiful was um, T'Challa's lover. What was her name? Please forgive me, I forgot her name. Um, anyway, but yeah, but T'Challa's girl, she joins Shuri, and then she introduces a new character, which is her son, um, the son of T'Challa. And Shuri asks him, "What is your name?" Now, this is what's fantastic. I love about this movie. The name of the child is Toussaint, and Toussaint is actually a Haitian general who led the slave revolution within Haiti, and then Haiti became the first Black Republic. So it was kind of like a nod to our history. Being a Haitian myself, Haiti is a very small nation within the Caribbean, and not many people pay attention to it. We have a very rich history in regards to our culture and us being a free people. But also more specifically, what's beautiful about it is, despite the fact that the Black Panther died or T'Challa died, his legacy and his image is still continued through this child, which is a beautiful concept that I deeply enjoyed and deeply appreciated. So,
To you, Alex, so what in particular about this storyline did you like the most, and also kind of like what were your thoughts on the post credit scene?
Okay. So I enjoy. Repeat the question for me. I want to make sure I say this correctly.
No, I mean, what did you kind of like the most about this storyline, and also what were your thoughts on the post credit scene?
Okay, so I like what I loved about the story is that we got to see a nation of people deal with loss and overcome it
Mhm.
while dealing with another nation, essentially going through somewhat of the same thing. The only difference is that it showed us that that nation we're more alike than we are different. That's the ultimate gist that I got from the movie, and I really enjoyed where they were where they're going. Again, I enjoyed Shuri's progression, although there's some questionable things about it. I enjoyed definitely Queen Ramonda, and I definitely enjoyed Namor. And then I will say I'm mad that M'Baku took a back seat in this movie. That is what I was actually another thing because yes, he does become king at the end, but I'm like, we didn't really see him. I feel like we should have seen him a little bit more in this film because he was really the only male figure we had. It was M'Baku, and then that was really it. M'Baku and his people.
Yeah.
That was it, which we didn't really get. So he kind of took a back seat to this film. But to answer the second part of your question, your that post credit scene. Okay, so when Shuri's like Ukambani, and he's like Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Challa. I thought the reaction from my theater would have been a little bit like I guess more empathetic. And I heard a lot of people behind me say, "Really?"
Yeah.
Like only because if that's the case, you could have just recasted T'Challa. We are in the multiverse saga. So why, why okay, so if you mean to tell me that they've had a son, that child looks maybe 6, 7 years old.
Mhm.
So after the events of Endgame, they had a child and only one person knew about it, which was his mom. Really? Like I just that just it seems like if T'Challa really had a son, I feel like his son would be walking in his footsteps.
Mhm.
I feel as though I don't think they would just hide him out in Haiti only because for one, T'Challa loved his people. He trusted all of his people. So why would he? uproot and move his wife and his son to another country where he can't protect them. It just and like for instance, if the government found out about T'Challa's son, that's it. They're in a country where it's not Wakanda, but the government storming Wakanda is actually kind of laughable because we both know that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna happen. So I just feel as though that scene was a little bit misplaced. I'm glad that we're getting T'Challa's heir, but we're not gonna see that kid in the MCU really. I don't think until what 10 years from now, unless they make another time jump,
Yeah.
and T'Challa is now 20 and he wants to be the Black Panther. Like,
It's gonna be a
so I
while.
don't think, yeah, I don't think they handled that correctly. I get what I get the over aspects of what they were trying to do because there's a lot of sentimental things in this movie. But for T'Challa to have a son, which I thought was cool, but for
Yeah.
him to have a son and him not be protected by his own
It was
people,
strange.
but protected in Haiti, where Haiti's been raided multiple times by our government. Really, I don't know if that was, I don't know if that was a wise move for T'Challa to do with his queen Nakia. So
Yeah. And getting to our last topic, 10 years from now, like, do you still think this will be watchable and intriguing? I definitely think it may not be as beloved and cherished the same way as the original, but the way they tie kind of the emotional aspects of it and kind of letting um Shuri kind of get that lead role into it was very pivotal. But to you, Serge, to wrap it up, like, what are your thoughts? Like, how do you think this movie? Do you think this movie will still be watchable, and intriguing another decade from
I think it'll be definitely watchable. I think not only do they pay a good tribute to like various cultures such as the Mesoamerican culture and Caribbean culture, because like I think this was shot not only in Haiti but I also think it was shot in Puerto Rico as well. And so the cultural significance with this film is praiseworthy enough. I think people would continue to watch it because of that, but also because of the significance of the death of Chadwick Boseman, um, such a fantastic actor. This movie is an ode to him, and so I think because of the gravity of this entire of what this film is dedicated to, and the cultures that they pay respect to as well, I think people would definitely watch it.
now? Definitely. And also, Serge, how do you think it compares to the original?
I will say this: the story to the original was far more cohesive. Um, it was connected. It didn't seem as if like there was any like random off stories. Like let's say for instance, when Okoye and Shuri went to America to visit Riri Williams, I felt like that was kind of like out of pocket a little bit. Like it didn't fit the story, the narrative. And so I think the Black Panther, the first film, the narrative was far more connected. I think I'll be honest with you. I feel like Killmonger was a better villain. Just to be honest with you, I really do think that. Um, but I think in regards to how the film was shot, like cinema wise, Black Panther 2 is a better film. Um, that's where I kind of stand on that.
All right. To you, Alex, for our closing thoughts, how do you think this movie will be watchable and intriguing another day from now? And the final question: how do you think it kind of compares to the original?
definitely because if people like the original, they want to see what happens next. And anybody who's a fan of just the actors, they want to see their performances in this movie. Um, this movie, I do believe it had an impact, but I don't think it had the same impact as the first movie. Because I remember when the first movie was coming out, sororities, fraternities, artists were renting out theaters.
Yeah,
I didn't really get that vibe this go
not from this
around.
one.
I didn't get that vibe this go around. I didn't, and like what I think, what kind of messed them up. Kendrick was the one that quarterbacked the whole soundtrack. We don't really hear that this time around, and
More
I'm
Rihanna.
kind of,
Yes, it's more
it
it's
was
more
more
Rihanna.
so Rihanna, which is not bad. Like I love her song, but
Yeah,
it's not a song I would listen to on the radio. But when I listen to All the Stars with Kendrick and
SZA. Yeah,
SZA,
song is
it
fire.
still hits today.
Yeah,
Or Kendrick's song "Pray for Me." Oh my God! Like, and just all the
still,
other songs on that album, on the first album, were good. That kind of helped shape the
that was a
movie.
really
This
good
movie
album.
was
That was a very good album.
Exactly. It was a good movie along with a great soundtrack. And some of the soundtracks that were in this movie, I mean, they were dope to an extent. I just didn't get the same feel. And I will say this because I don't think we really properly addressed it. I think as a society, we just had a problem with women taking on the reins as a superhero. But my only thing with that is that I'm glad that I have this movie so that way my daughter can see she can be the Black Panther too. Versus like us black men, we got the Black Panther, right? We definitely got him. Now we can say our daughters and sisters or even our wives or significant others, they have a Black Panther as well,
Yeah.
which I thought was intriguing. But at the same time, I don't know if y'all feel the same way. I don't believe Shuri's gonna be Black Panther for long. I think that's probably like the last time.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Alex and Serge, it has been an absolute pleasure having you both on for this episode and reviewing. Thank you guys so much for doing this again.
Oh, anytime. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. I'm your host, Winston Burns. This has been Full Scope. See you later.